In this video, I'm going to be explaining to you everything you need to know about visiting Rocky Mountain National Park and Estes Park in Colorado. I visited Colorado on a little 4-day solo trip in summer without a car. And like the title says, I'm going to also be explaining to you how you can do your trip with or without a car. So keep watching. From Denver into Estes Park. Well, it's about an hour and a half drive, so obviously that will be the easiest way if you drive, but they do have the Estes Park Airport shuttle, and they'll pick you up straight from the airport and take you straight to your hotel. That's what I used, and I found it extremely easy. I will put links below for like everything I talk about, just to make life easier for you guys. So one of the reasons why you might not want to bring your car into the national park is because of parking. This national park gets so full during the summer. They have implemented a reservation system, and the parking lot actually fills up like early in the morning, especially for the Bear Lake Corridor, which is one of the more popular parts of the park. I got there probably around 9:30 a.m., something like that, and the parking lot was full. And of course, there's also the expense of renting a car if you're coming from another country or out of state. Rental car costs can add up, and so not having one can definitely save you some money. Okay, so once you're in Estes Park, how do you get around that area? Well, the main downtown is actually quite walkable, so if you stay somewhere in that area, you'll be able to walk around pretty easily. But if you don't feel like walking and want to go a bit further out, they do offer a free shuttle service within the Estes Park area. It runs from Memorial Day till mid-October, so double check the website for the exact dates. They have different lines, all like based on colors, like a blue line, red line, yellow line, stuff like that. And all the buses leave from the visitor center. Uber and Lyft is not an option in Estes Park. They're only allowed to drop you off inside the area, inside the town, but they can't drive within the town and they can't pick you up from inside the town. And then if you want to go to the national park, there are shuttles for that too. There is the Hiker Shuttle that will get you from the Estes Park Visitor Center into the national park. It stops at the Bear Lake Bus Bay, and then from there you will switch shuttles depending on where you want to go in the national park. They have a shuttle that goes to the Bear Lake Corridor, and they also have a shuttle that goes to the Marine Park area. So the shuttles don't cover the whole park. They do only cover the bottom section of the park. If you want to go up the top, you're going to either need a car or to like book a tour, because the shuttles aren't going to go up that area. The internal shuttles within the national park and the Hiker Shuttle that takes you to the national park run from May 26 to October 22. Obviously, depending on the year that you're looking at this, double check. Maybe the dates might change a little bit year to year. So if you don't have a car, walking or catching the free shuttle buses would be your best bet. So you decide, let's just catch the shuttle. What do you do next? The first thing you would have to do is actually pre-book the Hiker Shuttle online. That can be done from the recreation.gov website, and it costs $2 to make a reservation. One reservation is good for 4 people as well. Just make sure they give you 4 separate tickets within that reservation, so when they scan it, it's fine. And the tickets do come out on a first come first served basis, so you do want to make sure you get online as soon as the tickets get released. Make sure you double check when the last shuttle leaves, because you don't want to be left stranded in the national park. So once you've booked your Hiker Shuttle reservation, you still have to pay the park entry fee. So the amount that you pay does depend on how long you're going to be spending at the park. If it's just a day, it's $30 for a vehicle entry and $15 for a walk-in entry. So that's if you're like bicycling in or you're catching the shuttle, you would pay the $15 entry fee. Okay, so this next part is a little bit more complicated, because in addition to just paying your entry fee, you also need to book a time slot for when you're going to enter. But you only have to do that between certain hours of the day, and those hours differ depending on what part of the park you want to go to. So it can be a little bit confusing. So basically, if you don't want to go to the Bear Lake Corridor, but you want to go to everywhere else, the time entry is only between the hours of 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. But if you want to go everywhere in the park, including the Bear Lake Corridor, those timed entry permits are for anywhere between 5 a.m. and 6 p.m. And that's $2 to reserve that. So if you plan on entering the park before 5 a.m., you don't need it, but you know, who's going to do that? So I feel like most people are going to have to book a time entry permit. These reservations open up 7 p.m. the day before. So you want to make sure you're online to get the time slot that you want. Otherwise, you'll be entering a lot later, and obviously the later you go, the more people there's already going to be there, so you're just going to be dealing with crowds. So I do recommend trying to get the earliest entry time possible. And when you're booking it, especially on like a small screen on your phone, make sure you double check the date that you're booking the entry for. I accidentally booked it for the same day that I got there instead of the next day, so I ended up actually having to pay for 2 days because there's no refunds on the recreation.gov website. So when you're planning your trip, just make sure you figure out the times of when you want to go somewhere. You can't just spontaneously go to this national park, not in these summer months anyway. In winter, I don't believe there is a reservation system, so you can probably just go whenever, but not in summer.
Okay, so in terms of what to pack, it really depends on what you plan on doing for your trip. I'm just going to name some of the basics that you should bring, like besides the obvious like toiletries, camera, all that, just like some of the basic items that you'll need there, and then use this list to build on depending on what you plan on doing. And of course, I'll leave links in the description for all the items I talk about.
We're going to want to bring a good pair of comfortable shoes to hike in. Whether it's hiking boots or tennis shoes, really just depends on the types of trails you plan on doing. If you're doing the Bear Lake corridor, tennis shoes should be fine. I actually have trail running shoes, which I love because they have the grip of a hiking boot, but the size and look of a tennis shoe. For clothing, you're going to want to pack comfortable, moisture-wicking clothes like athletic wear, and make sure you bring extra layers too. For summer, a light jacket is all you really need, but make sure you do have a warmer one or hoodie or something to layer on top if you do plan on going in the higher elevation areas where it's cold. Or you could buy a poncho. I have this reusable one here that I got from Amazon, which was great. It was huge and covered everything, including my backpack. Weather in the mountains can be quite unpredictable. You're higher in elevation, so sun protection is important. So is insect repellent. I got this natural one that smells divine and free of chemicals. Don't forget a water bottle. I love this one. It actually has a UV light inside it that helps self-clean and purify the water inside.
Next is, where do you stay? Well, of course, if you're not going to have a car for the entirety of the trip, I recommend staying somewhere near the visitor center, especially if your main goal is to go to the national park a lot. That is because that's where all the buses are, and you're going to catch the buses to go anywhere within Estes Park as well. That's what I did. I ended up staying at a place called Discovery Lodge. It was actually really cute. They had their own little lake area and gazebo, a place to walk around, and you had a view of a nice little mountain and the golf course. It was a really nice spot, very clean. They had filtered water in the reception area where you could sit and hang out as well. So every morning and every night coming back in, I would just refill all my bottles, so I had filtered water. I booked that on hotels.com, so I'll leave a link below if you're interested. Otherwise, staying within the Estes Park downtown area would be nice. The actual national park doesn't have any lodging. If you want to stay in the national park, you have to camp, and if you want to stay somewhere a little bit more fancy and treat yourself, the Stanley Hotel is a good option, and that's good walking distance to the visitor center as well. And obviously, if you have a car, you can venture further out for your accommodation because it will get cheaper the further out of town you go. Obviously, that means a bit more of a drive, but you can drive to the visitor center, park there, and then catch the bus and shuttles from there. And now onto the fun stuff. What do you do once you get there? So I'm going to go through places you can go, things you can do in the national park, and things you can do in Estes Park, the town. All the activities I'm listing are accessible by the shuttles, so you can do them with or without a car. So number one are some of the hikes in the Bear Lake corridor. I've mentioned this area before. It is the most popular part of the park, and for a good reason. Like, don't skip it just because it's popular. It's definitely worth going to. I loved it. I spent like almost a whole day in this area, and it was so pretty. It was a really beautiful spot. So there's a few things you can do. The main ones though that a lot of people do is the Bear Lake Trail. It's a short and relatively easy loop around Bear Lake. It's flat, it's wheelchair accessible, and it shouldn't take you too long. And don't let the easiness of it fool you. It is a beautiful spot and worth doing. Another one, which is what I did, is the Emerald Lake Trail, and it takes you past 3 different lakes: Nymph Lake, Dream Lake, and of course Emerald Lake. I would say Dream Lake is probably the most beautiful of the 3 lakes. I think it's definitely still worth going up to Emerald. The color of that water is just so different. Now this trail is 3.8 miles or 6 kilometers out and back. So you go there to the end and you go back the way you came. Because it's so popular, I do recommend this for any solo travelers out there. I went by myself and I was like totally fine the whole time. There's a lot of people that you pass on the trail. You're never really alone. Don't have to worry about actually coming across bears. Like, it's too busy for bears to come to that area despite the name. Another really beautiful lake that's worth visiting, especially at sunset, I think, is Sprague Lake. You just walk around. It's a flat, easy trail and the water is beautiful and it was just a stunning spot. I actually went here as part of a little tour and it was gorgeous. Another popular hike, which I actually didn't get time to do myself, itself is Alberta Falls. It's another relatively easy hike, and it's 1.6 miles or 2.6 kilometers return. And of course, in the other side of the park, where it's not the Bear Lake Corridor, there's a whole lot of picnic areas you can go, so it's very family orientated. And they have a marine park loop hike that you could do. Again, I didn't have a chance to do this myself, but from what I've heard, it's really beautiful. And now, of course, before going on any hike in the national park, double check trail conditions. I like to look at the All Trails website. You can look at reviews and see what people are saying about the condition of the trail who have gone recently. And you can look at the national park website or the national park social media, because they'll give updates if there's anything that's closed. Also check the weather conditions. The weather in the mountains is very unpredictable and can change in an instant. I know because I experienced it myself. The day I went, it was sunny, it was beautiful. I started my hike all good, and on my way back it actually started raining and hailing. If this happens, seek cover and last about like 20 minutes so you can just wait it out. Of course, the ideal is to not get stuck in it, go in the morning and be done by mid to late afternoon. And that was my plan, and it did not happen. And of course, pack plenty of water and snacks, and make sure you practice leave no trace. Don't leave your rubbish out. Bring it with you, bring it back. Don't push yourself. If you find yourself getting more tired than you normally would hiking up, it's more likely just the elevation getting to you. So slow down, take rests, have plenty of water, and definitely be aware of that. So that's some of the hiking that you can do. Of course, there's a lot more trails available, and see what works for you. There are more strenuous hikes. And another thing you can do in the national park is wildlife watching, which is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this type of thing. I went in August actually, which is the elk mating season. So elk are out everywhere, not just in the national park, but also in the town. You will be guaranteed to see elk if you go in August. Not in the Bear Lake Corridor because there's too many people, but in like the meadow area, you will definitely see elk. Also make sure you keep an eye out for other animals like deer and bighorn sheep. There are chipmunks everywhere. I also saw a marmot. Marmot? Is it a marmot or marmot? Maybe marmot. I don't know. Let me know. I actually did a sunset elk watching tour, which was really fun. They take you out in this 4x4 truck and you go through the park looking for like the animals, and they tell you facts about the national park and the area. So it's definitely very interesting and educational and fun to book a tour like that too. There are also even tours that do like horseback riding throughout the park, photography tours, 4x4 Jeep tours that go off-road. There are plenty of options out there. I'll leave a link below to go up Trail Ridge Road and Old Fall River Road. Now these are two roads that take you up to the top of the national park above Tree Lane. Trail Ridge Road is probably the most famous of the two roads. It is the highest continuously paved road in the US. If you do decide to go up the top above Tree Lane, just make sure that you're aware of altitude sickness. Another way to get up above Tree Lane is to take Old Fall River Road, and like the name suggests, it is the old road that used to take you up there. So it is actually a dirt road. They do sometimes close it depending on the seasons. It's windy, it's dusty, it's kind of steep, it's got drop-offs. It is a bit of fun. There's amazing views, but be careful. Make sure you have a good car to go up that road. But if you don't have a car, you can actually book half-day tours that'll take you up. And then another thing that you can do in the national park, especially if it's summer, is, a bit of swimming in the lake. And I believe there are options for canoeing and stuff in certain areas of the park. And another thing you can do is join a ranger program that take you on nature walks, tell you more about the park and the wildlife and the ecosystem. This is actually like common throughout all the national parks. So that's it for things to do in the national park that I have. Now, things to do in Estes Park. Estes Park itself is such a cute little town. It's definitely worth spending at least a day exploring the area. So the first place to go is, of course, stroll the streets of downtown Estes Park. It's very cute. There's lots of shops, restaurants, galleries. Number two, I would recommend is going up the Estes Park aerial tramway that takes you up to the top of Prospect Mountain. It's very small. You can only let a few people in at a time, but it gives you amazing views of the Estes Park area. And then once you're up top, there's a little cafe, nothing fancy. And there are some hikes and stuff you can do too. Number three recommendation would be to take a nice stroll around Lake Estes. This is quite close to the town. Lake Estes is a pretty big man-made lake, and it has activities that you can do there like paddleboarding or kayaking. I actually think it's a good place to go during sunrise because it's so close to the town. Number four is a fun thing to do, especially if you have kids, and it's called the Mustang Mountain roller coaster. Basically, it's like an alpine roller coaster. It costs $20 for one ride or $25 for 3 rides. This one, it's not far for driving. I think it was like only a 5-minute drive from the center of town. But if you don't have a car, things are quite spread out, and I would recommend catching the shuttle bus there. There's a blue line. You can get off at stop 8 or 10, which is across the road, and you just cross the road and walk up until you find it. I wanted to do this one, but I actually ran out of time. But from what I hear, it's a fun little experience. Number 5 would be to do the river walk. It runs alongside the Big Thompson River. It starts around the visitor center and it's paved, it's flat, it's very easy, and it's a lovely stroll. You get beautiful views of the river and there's shops and restaurants that go along it too. So it's a lovely little spot. The main part of it is about 1.1 miles long or 1.8 kilometers long. And the 5th recommendation is to tour the historic Stanley Hotel. Now this is a haunted hotel that you may have heard of before. It was actually the inspiration and setting for the Stephen King novel The Shining. So it's definitely an interesting place. The hotel itself has its own history and stories too about the Stanley family. So I definitely recommend checking it out. They have an hour-long historical tour, and then they also have some other tours. They have one that's centered around the Shining movie and novel, and they have another one that's like a ghost tour. And that is all you need to know for your trip to Rocky Mountain National Park and Estes Park in Colorado. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to make sure I covered all the bases so that you know everything you need to in order to plan your trip properly. I wish you the best of luck for your trip. You're going to love it. It's a beautiful spot and I'm really excited for you to go. If you like this video, please thumbs up and comment if it helped you, and make sure you subscribe for more travel guides. I will be uploading a ton more. Next up, check out my vlog from my trip to Rocky Mountain and Estes Park, and I will see you over there. Bye.